Hi, good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's episode of Ask the Knights. My name is Annora. I'm coming to you from the West Kingdom, and tonight we have two awesome guys with us tonight. We have Little John, of course, behind the scenes, and our tech boy Effin. And tonight we have two well-known travelers with us as well. We have Sir Duncan. I want to make sure I get this right. Ap Llewellyn, Viscount Sir Duncan Ap Llewellyn, and this one, oh God, Sir Cosimo, Master of the Pelican and Master of the Laurel. Okay, I made that look so much harder on paper than it really should have been, and I'm sorry. God. Okay, gentlemen, thank you guys so much for coming on the show tonight. We're really hoping that this is going to be one where, you make us feel better about traveling, and it's really not as scary as we're probably making it seem to ourselves, and that's what we're hoping you guys are going to be able to help us with. Duncan, as our resident Viscount, could you tell us about introduce yourself and where you currently reside?
Yeah, so I'm Duncan. I am currently this week in Glenavon.
Like, you're serious about you travel a lot?
What? Yeah, last week I was up in the east, and last week I was in Outlands and out east, and 2 weeks ago I was up in Canada, and yeah, that's just in the past couple of weeks.
Gotcha. And then there's your squire, Sheva.
Yep.
And Cosimo, you're currently in Aidenvelt, like I asked, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Now, go ahead. No, you first.
Just say from a traveling perspective, like me bouncing kingdom-wise, I started in the Outlands, then came to Aidenvelt, then went to Atlantia, then to the Mid-Realm, back to the Outlands, back to Aidenvelt, and for a short period of time, technically in Drakkenwald, while I lived in India for about 6 months.
And I was really excited when I went to a city an hour away that was not my usual practice. Okay, I'm going to just shut up now. And okay, now Duncan, what about you? I know you were in Korea recently.
So I started out in Aidenvelt, moved to Kaid, from there to the Outlands. Then because I'm active duty Army, I went to Meridies. From there, I went up to Kingdom of the West, Principality of Awertha. From there, I went to Onstiora. Then I went back out west to the far west when I was in Korea. Then I went back to Onstiora for a few months, and now I'm in Glenavon.
We need to travel more. I got like 3 of those kingdoms on there. That's it. Oh my God.
I would
okay,
recommend
and so
it.
Cosimo, you travel due to work, but you're non-military, yes?
Correct. And thankfully, truth be told, I took a new job and my traveling days are finally over. But for about 20 years, I was a frequently relocator and a frequent traveler for, I'm trying to think of a kingdom I didn't work in. Untier. No, that's not true. I did. North Shield. I never worked in North Shield.
Okay.
That would be about the extent of it. I have currently visited 44 of the 50 states just off of work alone.
I'm absolutely flabbergasted by that, by the both of you and everywhere that you've gone. That is so incredibly cool, and I'm incredibly jealous. Okay, so I'm going to ask, and hopefully this doesn't, feel like it dates you at all, but how long have you both been in the SAA and having to travel with all of this? Duncan, I think it's up to you now.
I got to pull my calculator out.
Oh my God! And now you were military this whole time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Not when I started in Aidenvelt, but according to the calculator, I've been playing 29 years.
Okay. So you started in Aidenvelt. When did you get into the military then, if you don't mind me asking, and started the traveling?
The year after. So
okay.
But I took a small break between the Marine Corps and the Army. So I'm sitting on right at just shy of 20 years active duty.
Jeez. Thank you very much for your service, and good job.
I get a paycheck.
That's true. And you get to travel and see really cool places.
Mm-hmm.
Kaz, if you don't mind.
Oh, not at all. I started in '97, so I guess that puts me at 26 years now.
Better math than me. I don't even know how old I am. So with all of that traveling, I mean, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm sorry. There is one other question that I always like to ask, and it's how did you get into the SCA? How did you find out about it? And it almost seems to be the same thing, D&D, which I swear we need to have like a D&D badge on here for that to light up. But anyways, Cosmo, if you don't mind. Oh no, shit.
Not at all.
Fuck off. I can't count. Sorry, I'm commenting on these guys in the comment section.
No problem at all.
I did not get to do his show, and I swear he's held it against me ever since. And I'm very looking forward to when I find him on the field. God, it's
Right.
going to be very, very bad. Anywho, Cosmo,
But
go
I am
ahead.
hearing the lesson: don't invite Annora to a Counted Blows tournament. Got it. Okay.
Oh, I'm going to lose my card.
So how I got involved was actually not Dungeons and Dragons, believe it or not. I actually started playing D&D when I was 8. I had no idea the SCA was a thing, but as part of one of my work travels, a long time ago, I worked for a company some of you may have heard of. It's called AOL. For those of you who are younger, there was a time when the internet was much smaller than it is today, and AOL was a big deal.
AOL was the best. Nothing is ever compared to AOL, I'll be honest. Oh, I miss that stuff.
I relocated from Tucson, Arizona to Albuquerque, New Mexico to open up a call center there. And the squad that I went with, we had a couple of individuals who were very active in the SCA. And one weekend, a guy by the name of Sean of the South, some of you may have known him. I think he currently lives in, I think it's actually Meridian now, Tennessee, Eastern Tennessee.
No, he's actually up in Owertha.
Did he go to Owertha?
No, wrong Sean. You're thinking Sean of Kilkenny, different guy.
Oh, okay.
Two Seans. But Sean dragged me out to fighter practice saying, you're doing nothing on the weekends with playing Warcraft 2 because that's when it came out. That's really dating me now. And I was bored out of my mind looking for a basketball league to join. He's like, no, this will be much more fun. When I was out there, Master Raymond the Quiet actually had all of his armor out there for sale. So I just made the spur of the moment find to shut him up. I'll buy the kit and I'll come out and fight. And ever since then, that was the start of it all.
Okay. I mean, I'm actually really surprised that D&D was not the starter in there, but Sean South, my husband knows him too, and he loves him very much.
Well, yes, your husband was captain of the guard for Sean's first reign as Baron of Triskathir.
Yes.
He beat me in the finals, dang it.
He does that. It's a lefty thing, I swear to God. And there's apparently Sean is a very popular name in the SCA because I don't know how many Seans we know at this point. Duncan, how about you? How'd you get in the SCA? I mean, obviously, military probably is not a part of it. You have to get down. You are shedding horribly.
So, funny enough, it was not D&D with me either. I had a friend of mine named Sean the Lads out of Aidenville, and I was at his house, and I saw this stick-looking thing. And talk about dating ourselves. It was a stick in a Folgers coffee can. And while we were sitting there, drinking and socializing, he kept pouring linseed oil in the end of the stick. And I later learned it was rattan. And I was like, why are you putting oil in a bamboo stick? And he goes, well, I'm making a sword. And he ended up convincing me to go to a fighter practice at in Canto Park in downtown Phoenix, or very close to downtown Phoenix. And in the 90s, like when I went to this fighter practice, there was probably 30 or 40 people there, all in armor. There were merchants set up.
This is just a practice? I'm sorry?
This was at a practice. Yes.
Okay, go on.
And so I look at it, and I mean, it's something out of a medieval fair. All these guys in armor and just beating the piss out of each other. And it was something that I had seen several years prior. and I discarded it because I was like, it looks like they're wearing metal football armor and, you know, playing with foam sticks. But the evolution of armor, we were just transitioning away from Freon can helmets and carpet armor, and it hooked me. And from there, I met Sir William Flanagan, who had pretty much beat the piss out of me from the minute I got into armor until I left Aidenville. So, I mean,
Did he become your knight?
No.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
Because, like, I've never actually asked that question, I don't think. I'm okay. I am still blown away. Wait. Aidenville had practices. Okay, the 30 plus people. Okay, I'm impressed with that.
That was actually a small one. You could get 50 or 60.
Yeah.
What
the Encanto Phoenix
this?
practices were legendary for years. Especially when the game was in its heyday, we would have, if you wanted to go a 40-on-40 melee, just show up Wednesday night.
Yep.
Okay, and that was going to be my next question. Was this a weekend thing or during the week? This was a weeknight?
Yep.
Get the fuck out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hang on, I'm having trouble understanding this because I don't even think we have that many people who come.
Well, from a mathematical perspective, please also understand that where the practice was essentially was the center point of 3 different baronies. So it's technically in the barony of Aidenville, but you had Sundragon and what became Twin Moons shortly thereafter, all pointing in the same.
Oh,
but it's just still a lot of people for a great practice. Yes.
I mean, how far away are some of these people driving?
20
Most
minutes.
of those, maybe
I mean,
upwards
if you
of an
go
hour
from
if
the
you live in the
far side
outskirts.
of Mesa and, you know, Glendale, like, you know, you're talking maybe a 30-minute drive, but and you could get 3 sizable practices. I mean, you know, Sundragon, there's what was it, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or I forget
It was for a while, but then it became Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday. Sundragon moved theirs to Sunday.
Yeah.
I see that. And no, I do remember Mission because that's when I first started. And Mission, that's why I was like, oh, Mission does not compare to this. Mission was a very big practice in the Bay Area. And we would have, I would say 20 and maybe 30 would be a really good night. But Aidenville wins. And merchants, are you fucking kidding? Like legit merchants?
Legit merchants.
So the Ashcroft spun tops were being made in Arizona, and he would bring, and it made it so easy when you could go and for, I don't know, 100, 150 bucks, you could get, you know, a helmet, and the next week you were wearing it padded out, or the next day oftentimes, so you can make the next practice.
Okay, this might insult some people in the audience, and maybe you guys too. What happened? What caused this practice to slowly fall apart?
Well, I
can't imagine it's
I don't know if it has fallen apart.
No, I can speak to that a little bit. When it comes to some of the quote unquote falling apart, you're talking about Ashcraft. The armory, unfortunately, the owner of the armory actually started getting old and infirm, so he couldn't come out as much. We still do have merchants that will show up to the Encanto practice today. They'll put up small booths for things. They typically plan it ahead of time and let people know we'll be out on this Wednesday, so people need to buy this in preparation for X war or Y war. They will come out. The Encanto practice was raging pretty heavy at 30 to 60 people on any given week. Very strong until about, I would say, maybe 10 years ago. About 10 years ago, we started to see a bit of a drop off in attendance. My personal opinion is I think in some ways we're kind of graying out. We have a lot of the older folks still playing, but we're not pulling in as much new blood, and it's just not feeding itself at the speed it was. Now, on the other side of that fence, our rapier community in the kingdom is starting to grow a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a simple math. Now it costs way more than the $200 it cost me to get kitted up to get started. Whereas for less than $200, you can get on the rapier field. So you can still do a combat art for much less money.
That's a very good point. All about the pricing on its own. Hey, who made your helm? Your 30-year-old helm. Yeah.
Kelly Ashcraft. I'm sorry. No. Illusion.
Yep.
Illusion. Oh no, he had
Yeah,
illusion.
still.
But I was gonna get really excited. I'm like, oh, that my husband has a 30-year-old helm that is still rock solid.
I
Same
I
helm.
I still
Same
have
helm.
one of the old Ashcraft helmets.
Really? Those things
Rings
are
like
pretty
a
must be
Liberty Bell.
legendary. What's that?
I said it rings like the Liberty Bell.
That's his. That is his. You can. There's a certain spot where it hits, and I wore it once, and somebody hit me there, and it took out my hearing. So no wonder you don't hear me all the time.
What?
Exactly. Anywho, I'm still so. I've heard Aidenvelt practices were incredibly legendary, but that is outstanding. And now, I mean, it sounds like it's still happening. I mean, maybe not to that degree, but it's still a pretty good practice.
It is still a pretty good practice. We'll typically get now, post-pandemic, it's just been a slow start, and people are coming back out at the speed they're doing. And I'm sure we've all seen that drop off. So post-pandemic, sometimes the practice will only have 12 fighters, but sometimes the practice will get back up to 30. So it's starting to resurge. What makes things a little interesting for inter-kingdom dynamics, to those people familiar with Aidenvelt, most of our most recent crowns have been out of the barony of Twin Moons. So Twin Moons practice on Thursdays is now becoming a bit more of a central mecca because that's where all the current and former kings live. So you go where, sorry to say it this way, but as fighters, you go where the hot sticks are. You're not going to get better unless you're fighting the best fighters. So if the center of power has shifted across town, well, that's where the practice goes.
Yeah, we're not going to get into that conversation here in the West. We had a practice on Sunday, and I think we had maybe 8 people, and we were so proud of ourselves that we had 8 people. We were just like, oh my God, we've done it. It's the first thing. So, okay. Because you guys have moved so much, I have to know, is there a particular kingdom you've liked above all others, and why? As somebody from the West who's always wanted to travel, I want to see how these other kingdoms operate, like how Aidenvelt, how the king crowns himself. I want to see that in action and see how it looks. It sounds impressive as hell. I'd love to see other kingdoms and how they do things. I mean, I'm curious.
Duncan, go ahead.
Yeah.
Do I have a favorite kingdom? Yes. Am I ever going to say no?
Duncan, don't make me use your name.
It must not be Glenobin then.
Or it could be.
I can't actually put Glenobin on the list because I haven't been here very long, and the time that I've been here, I have not been very active. I will say that every kingdom is very unique in certain aspects. Aidenvelt, it was a small group of good old boys that, we hung out, we did everything together, not cliquish, but we did everything together. In Kaid, my experience was large warband, encounters, with Outlands. I was deployed most of the time. I will say with Meridies, Meridies was very close to that old school SCA feel. I did have a lot of fun in Meridies. Moving on to Awertha, of course, being royal and experiencing that, it kind of skewed what my mindset was, because it wasn't normal. I wasn't just Duncan. I was always His Highness, or there. So in every place I've been, there's something very unique about each location. If I could take it all, put it in a big mixing pot, I'd have to say that's my SCA. I will say, being here in Glenobin, they're giving me the warm old school feel, and I look forward to playing here for a long time.
Southern hospitality is definitely a thing out there. I can definitely think. Glenalbin, you have air you can wear. That is incredibly true. Very, very true. All right, guys. Since he's clearly not going to say that, I'm curious, Cosimo, do you have anything?
Yeah, I would be utterly lying if I didn't say that my heart was in really two kingdoms. It would be the Outlands and Aiden and part of it is a product of me spending the most time here. Um, simply put, clearly I've been here for, in Aiden now just about forever, Aiden Knight, but started in the Outlands and have been bouncing back and forth. I feel that the kingdom cultures are very similar, so it's very easy to go from one kingdom to another and feel that it's very much the same. You walk into a camp, you can expect the same type of welcome, etc. Now that said, there's not a major war. I don't, with the exception of Ontier West that I haven't been to, and most of the other groups, especially when I was traveling for work a lot. If I knew I was going to be going back to a place more than once, my first trip would just be getting comfortable with the area. The second or third trip would usually be bring your armor and go to a local fighter practice. And what I have found, the SCA, frankly, just as a whole, is just a great bunch of people. There wasn't a time that I went to a foreign practice that people did not roll out the red carpet just because it was a visiting so-and-so. Didn't matter who I was. There's a new person here. Let's put on a show. Let's go fight. Let's go train. And it became a wonderful experience. And it didn't matter where, if it was someplace obscure in the middle or Atlantia, up to the east, that random trip to Trimaris, it was an utter blast. But for my own comfort level, it's Aiden Outlands, and I can't lie. I will also freely admit that one of my first times relocating, I did not give Atlantia a chance. I moved there for 2 years and was working so hard, so frequently, I just never had a chance to go play. And I kind of regret that. I wish I had gone out more.
That's fair. I mean, unfortunately, we do have that problem where we play a game that's very expensive. I don't care. Golf is expensive, I've heard. It does not feel the same as what this is, because you don't travel that much for a golf game, from my understanding. We have to have the jobs that play the game, and sometimes the jobs take over. I think we have all had that kind of a situation happen. But I can understand it. And isn't Outlands an offspring of Aidenveld?
Yes, technically, Glen Aubyn's our grandchild. So yeah.
See, so I mean, I would expect it to have the same mentality, but knowing people from Aidenveld and Outlands, I can attest that they make some very fun people. Yeah. I'm curious, since you both, knights, you are a master. Duncan, I know of one of your squires, because I love her dearly. Do you have any others?
No.
You only have one? I thought you had others.
Nope.
Sheva.
Little story is, I wasn't gonna have the one. And over a drink sometime, I'll tell you the full story, but I actually knighted her because for years she would go around, she would tell people I'm her not knight, and she would introduce me to people. Hey, this is Duncan, my not knight, and it was to people like Miles and Alfar, and this little pint-sized woman's going, yeah, this is Duncan, my not knight. And I'm like, Chevy, you can't say stuff like that. But, because of how I ended up getting knighted in Awertha, it was actually at Gulf War at my vigil that my household was throwing for me several months later that I actually knighted Sheva. And a lot of it was because if I didn't, I suspected she was going to stab me.
She would.
I have not taken any other squires because of all the traveling that I've done and the fact that I'm typically in an area for just a couple of years. And if I can't give to a squire what I feel is appropriate time and attention, then I'm going to leave that person free to find somebody that can do it for them.
That is not a bad mentality. Some people can have the distant knight squire relationship. You clearly want to have something more, not necessarily personable, but you want to be a little bit more hands-on, it sounds like, when it comes to having your squires.
Yeah, that knight squire relationship, it needs to be, intimate and unique. And I felt that with Sheva, and I will preface, she was not giving me much of a chance. She might be 5.
You're mine, no matter what.
Yeah, might be 5 foot tall, but dynamite comes in small packages. And one of the only condition that I put, when you're talking about oaths and promises, was as long as we can be friends, she can keep that belt. Because I'm not gonna say, hey, yeah, you got to go to practice twice a week, or hey, you got to do this, when I myself might not be able to do it. And Sheva and I's friendship goes so far beyond the SCA. It goes so far beyond really just even a friendship. It's I couldn't ask for a better squire.
Yeah, no, I've seen you guys, and it is very familial in how you guys act to each other, and I absolutely love that. But I consider you guys family at this point, just as Heinrich considers Cosimo, he considers you family as well.
Of course, we did a lot.
So
together.
and now, yeah, guys pretty much grew up together, from my knowledge, from my understanding. So, do you have squires in that case? Do you have proteges and apprentices?
No proteges yet. I was only given my wings earlier this year in February.
Wings.
And, no one has, yeah, no one has approached me about becoming a protege, which is at the moment just fine by me. We've had a little life foo, so it would not have been a good conversation, but I'm coming out of it now. I do have 3 squires, all local here. One of them was in Phoenix, but relocated down here when his father's health was ailing, and we typically meet twice a week. I'm trying to get all of them back out fighting. 2 of them are severely injured. One of them is just getting old and it's hot. So at some point we'll push all the way through that. And I have one apprentice also in Phoenix who is doing extremely well on this path, and I'm looking forward to seeing him get over that edge.
Does he do music as well?
He does. He does actually quite a bit of things. He is an excellent storyteller, a fantastic writer. He can sing as well, not in the level of the whiskey bards. I know you're watching, Russ. Sorry, but it's true, and you know it. But he's also a master horn carver, and he can teach that.
Ooh.
He also does quite a bit of his own brewing, and I'll call it pseudo distilling, but he makes his own rum blend, which if you're a rum guy, you need to meet him because his rum blend is freaking outstanding. Why are you looking at his butt?
He has a really cute butt, to be fair. You know what? I'm not going to even mention that to my husband. He's going to get really embarrassed.
We'll mention it for you.
And God, shit. What? Oh, no, that wasn't the cute butt wasn't the part, sweetheart. Sorry, now I'm a little bit embarrassed. Shay, back off. So it sounds like your apprentice. Right, I'm having to remember who everybody is. I'm a okay. Your apprentice is got he does it all, a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and an excellent rapier fighter at that too. Yeah.
Oh, nice,
and
nice.
For what it's worth, I haven't had any squire become knight, but I did have one apprentice become a laurel this year as well. So.
Oh, that's cool.
Very
okay,
cool.
Very neat. Okay, so now that we found out about the squires, we found out about you guys. We were really curious about this because at some point we're going to move out of the West, and I've started here in the West. I never want to leave the West personally, but I know I will at some point. Is it as scary as we are thinking to leave your home kingdom and start anew somewhere else? Is it as hard as people might even portray? You know, starting over, finding your feet there. If you are an unbelt, I mean, clearly, did you guys move kingdoms while you were unbelts? You know, and you're on a path. You were on a path of yourself, Cosimo, with Pelican and Laureling. Did this make it harder, do you think?
That's a great question. For my own path, as my squire brothers are all apt to point out, one drunken night, I actually promised my knight that I would get all 3 peerages just to prove everybody that I could. I don't remember this conversation, but they can tell me the date and time. We were a little drunk.
Drunken night.
Drunken night, that's right. But when we relocated, we did have the concern, certainly, that people would not be speaking for us. And when we moved from the Outlands to Atenveld, it was a slight culture shock. The way that we did practice in the Outlands, Albuquerque, we referred to as the Duke City. At the time, there were 7 active Dukes and usually one of the active Royals at your practice every week.
Holy
So you
shit.
didn't need, it was a glorious, positive, just beat fest. If you learned quickly, you were going to learn how to block that shot from multiple angles, because that guy threw it different than that guy who threw it different than that girl. It was a blast. But because of that, we chose our knights based on his ability to teach us how to be a knight. My knight, Sir Avram the Jew, great man, knows more about medieval history than anybody else I know. If you're going to do a medieval trivia contest, you want him with you. He can actually tell you everything you need to know about the War of the Roses. Don't read the book, just ask him. He will tell you. Just sit down and bring up a drink. But when we relocated, Avram has no sway in the Kingdom of Atenveld. So for our own path, we knew we were going to keep playing. We were going to keep playing and find our way. So we integrated with the barony, and it was scary, but the advantage I think there is we had each other. And Sean and I came together, so we had a duo, somebody to fall back on, so we weren't doing it alone. And in a very short period of time, your husband Heinrich and his group yanked us right in and said, "You guys need to come fight with us and hang out with us." And it became that family. And shortly thereafter, one of the knights in the local area said, "You have no one to speak for you. We will." And the rest is history.
Oh, so you kind of fell into it nice and comfortably, and you had a human there with you, so you didn't have to try and find your own group. You at least had somebody go with you, and you didn't feel ousted.
Yes, for this particular relocation, it was much simpler that way.
That's nice. And Duncan, you really had no choice when you were going to be moving places.
I usually had about 6 months or less notice.
Good God.
And I learned early on, the moving company can take my stuff, but my armor goes in the vehicle with me. And, being a fighter and being bumped in the head like most of us, you'll understand when I say, when a new fighter shows up to a fighter practice, it's like love at first sight. Everybody wants to beat the piss out of the new guy. So having got into the SCA, I was a self-proclaimed stick jock. I would take my armor to locations, and instantly I was one of the guys. I was in the crew with everyone else. And we'd fight each other. We'd do, dinner afterwards or lunch afterwards. And that provided an opportunity that we could get to know each other. But in my experience, it always started out in armor. Because you don't need to introduce yourself. If you show up, you have armor and weapons. Like I said, it's love at first sight. Everybody wants to see the new guy. And so like when you move, take your armor with you, because people suddenly bond with you.
You at least have something in common versus you trying to figure out even how to say hello to each other in the same language. You at least have, hey, you fight, I fight too. Yay, we're friends.
Yep.
Kind of like with tattoos.
I mean, even when I went to Awertha, I drove from basically Savannah, Georgia. I drove hitting a couple of practices and even a couple of tournaments all across the country through on tier, and ended up in Fairbanks, Alaska. I didn't have garb. I didn't have any clothes outside of what's in a suitcase, but I had my armor, and I think I was there 3 days, maybe 4 days, and I was fighting in their tournaments.
Yeah, it sounds like Awertha. Because I think that's always the fear is, and like somebody said, Sergio down here says it perfectly. It can seem like it can hinder you when you have to start over in a new kingdom, because you are having to now, showcase, especially fighters. I imagine same thing with laurels, with pelicans. It must be incredibly difficult for pelicans because you have to now get yourself noticed. And in fighting, you can either be noticed or not. You go to your practices, you get noticed. You go to your tournaments, you get noticed. Laurels, you want to make sure that you have art to showcase what you can do. And then Pelicans, you have to somehow show that you're willing to help without burning yourself out within 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's got to be really hard.
If I can speak to that, one of the things, this may not be a very popular opinion, but I'm going to voice it anyway. I honestly
No,
believe the
again,
problem-
make it awkward.
Yeah, well, I don't know this is necessarily going to be awkward, but I think the problem ultimately lies in the circles, not in the person, because thank you
Exactly.
for that. Yeah.
Everybody
going to use
remember
offensive-
this.
Yeah, I'm not going to use offensive language in this one, but if you think about it, when you stay in one kingdom, your whole goal as a enter peerage here participant, you're trying to prove a polling circle that you qualify or get the attention of the crown that they're just going to do it anyway. If you live in a kingdom that does that, like Atenvelt is a royalist kingdom, the king can literally say, I have to poll my peers to make a decision. He can pull 3 knights aside and say, I want to knight this guy. And the 3 knights can say, hell no, your majesty. And then he can turn around and camp and say, well, I polled them, and knight him anyway. Welcome to Atenvelt. So, but not every kingdom does that. But the trick, again, still comes down to, in my opinion, to the peerages. We've often hear in varying circles of varying types, I never see X person do Y thing. Well, my problem with that is, okay, well, have you gone to see X person? Are you making X person come to see you? Is that what you're doing? Or are you expecting them to come to your feet, oh, great and powerful peer? No, get off your butt and go do your job, and you go find the people. And if you have somebody who's traveled from other kingdoms, get to know them. Reach out to the other kingdom and find out what they had. If this person was on that bar, ready to go, maybe we should be the ones to pull the trigger and stop having this person wait. That's a good thing, not a bad thing. And I honestly think the circles should be looking at that.
Duncan, what's that face for?
So I will say the circles have a lot to do with it once you get established.
And well said, Cosimo. I totally agree. I'm sorry. I meant to say that.
Absolutely.
But I was like, oh, Duncan's got a face.
Well, Duncan has a face because, when you leave one kingdom, acting an ass, and you go to another one, your baggage can go with you. All right. That saying, you can do 10 good things, but the one bad thing is what people remember. So when I left Meridies, I had upset some people. I'll put it lightly. I had upset some people. When I went to Owertha, there's some people that felt strongly enough that they wanted to make sure that the West knew, that I had some issues when I was coming there. So it made it a little more difficult because of my actions. Speaking on the traveling and whatnot, we're definitely a couple of knights that can say it's our job to do some traveling. We're usually more established. We're more familiar. It's more comfortable for us to go places because that brand new fighter or that brand new, protege, they may not have the means or ability to travel some of these huge, expansive kingdoms. And if, as peers, we meet them halfway, go to events. I mean, the events are scattered pretty evenly in most places, and pollinate.
Mm-hmm. No, and that's a really good point where it's, used to be, and it gets mentioned down here that your baggage will follow you even before the internet. Your baggage followed you.
Yes.
I mean, you make a shit sandwich in a different kingdom, it's still going to stick in your ice chest when you get to the next place. Clearly, because
it should.
Well, and you're right. I mean, that should keep you. Well, you shouldn't act like an asshole anyways, but it's a great point that you can't just leave your kingdom and just start over. Oh, I'm going to go here where nobody knows me. Okay. A, that shit don't happen no more thanks to the internet and every kind of camera out there. And B, bless our hearts, we like gossip. You pull shit in another kingdom and the telephone line you might have just peed on the outside of a porta potty, but all of a sudden you're peeing on a throne in the next kingdom by the time it gets there before you. So, I mean, think about your actions and how they're going to affect you down the line. I mean, God, celebrities are proving to us that you might have been a shit when you were a kid. That doesn't excuse you at all.
Now, I will say, you know, focusing on you know, the hurdles you create for yourself are very quick. I think as a group, we need to make sure that we're sharing the good. You know, your reputation precedes you. We're better at talking about the less ideal things we do. But you know, how many times have we left a job and we got like a letter of reference, or, you know, like if somebody came up to me and they're like, hey, I'm going to move away, I'm going to go to this other location. You know, would you like kind of pre-introduce me? And it's actually happened. And, you know, I think we need to get into the habit of, you know, preceding our reputations or preceding the reputations of people that we have coming and going.
That's fair. Do you think that as peerages, it's been easier for you to go to new kingdoms? I mean, obviously you walk in, you're wearing a white belt, you're wearing a chain of some sort. People are going to look at you, immediately know that you're a knight, know that you are a pelican or a laurel. Are you immediately accepted due to that? Or do you still feel like you have to introduce yourself into that community?
In my experience, I think it's a different flavor of weird. You know, if when you're still walking your path and your path to a peerage is your goal, the challenges you face are different. You know, and we've covered that. You know, what do you have to worry about when you quite haven't got there? Then you find moving, and what's the ways to do that? We just talked about it. When you're actually an established peer and you're moving from kingdom to kingdom, you still have baggage that comes with you, but it's a different kind of baggage. And unfortunately, peer fear is still very much a real thing. My first time in armor in the mid-realm, when I went out to practice, not a single person talked to me. No one.
Were
even
you a
looked at
knight,
me,
if you don't mind?
I was a knight at the time.
Okay.
I had just finished having knee surgery. I just recovered, and I was coming out to fight for the very first time. Brought all my armor out, said, hey, who's the marshal? Oh, he's not here yet. And that was the extent of the communication I got. Small group of people. They're like, who the hell is this dude? We don't have seen him before. Okay, whatever. Put down my chair. People are in armor. I know, for Duncan's great example, as soon as I get my gear on, all I really need to know is good and hold, and we can speak the same language and we'll be fine.
Exactly. Put
all my armor on. Nobody says a dang thing. White belt goes on. All of a sudden, I'm the most popular person in the world. It was very unusual. Very unusual. And it took me and the barony a little while to get to that, I'll call it a simpatico place where I wasn't this weird aberration of, wait, it's a new knight out of the new area, versus just being another one of the people that was there. And that was a different growing pain. Just my experience so far. But again, it's all in the past now, and I still, even in Aitenville, I still spend time with that barony today. In fact, one of my band members is now the baron of that barony, so it'll be a lot easier to get integrated.
See, there you go. Okay, I mean, that actually, apparently Sir Flanagan is incredibly excited to see you both.
How you doing, Billy?
Billy the Kid.
Well, and I guess that's kind of reassuring to know that it doesn't seem as scary. It almost seems more of an adventure, and you do get, okay, wait, I take that back. As an extrovert, I can say that sounds incredibly fun to go and meet these new people, have something in common, at least at the basis of us all being Scadians. That's our basis, and we can go from there, clearly. Introverts probably still have a really hard time with that, I can imagine. Yes. But with that being said, I know we have had a couple of chat comments come through. So if my tech guys are ready for it, let's throw some of those out there, because I did see some come through, and they were actually really great questions. And I know I grabbed a couple. Are my boys behind it? 3, 2, no, got it. Okay.
Okay, if you would give me 2 seconds.
Sweetie, I gave you a minute. Doesn't take men that long. He gives me shit, I give it back. Should have parried. So Sergio asks, is it easier to become a peer in any kingdom? And this is actually a good question too. I know of some kingdoms where it seems like they have more knights than other ones, maybe. Oh, and you guys have extensive knowledge. Oh, none of you have been to Lockhack, I just realized.
The easiest kingdom to get a peerage in is the kingdom you're in.
Oh,
Yes.
well
that's
said.
the best way to say it. That's correct. Best way to say it.
Good. Oh, that was quick. Well done, Duncan. Jesus, that was well thrown. Well thrown. Let me see here. All right, Effin, I'm going to let you do the next one because, I mean, that completely stopped that question flat. Sheva asks, how did you develop relationships with your peers and keep them once you moved? Ooh, thank you, Internet. Duncan, you have a great example because you've moved a lot, and Sheva has moved herself. So, I mean, you guys are kind of doing this sort of thing across the world.
So how did I develop relationships? I'll break the question down. Typically with alcohol. And you know, it doesn't get any simpler than that. As soon as you get with me, a little bit of alcohol, you know, loosen up a little bit, start wearing cupcakes in my coronet. You know,
I don't know who did that.
How do I keep those relationships? Honestly, I don't know. Sheva and I have gone, you know, months, almost years without talking to each other. And then when we do reconnect, it's like, you know, we talk to each other, you know, the week prior. I think genuine, real friends, whether they're peers or not, you know, time doesn't degrade that friendship.
Sure. That's a good point.
Totally
Cosimo,
agree with
are all of yours, your proteges, apprentices, squires, are they all in Aidenveld proper?
At the moment, yes, all of my students are in Kingdom. I tend to use my students as a kind of a surrogate family. I try not to bring additional people in that have not been vetted by my other students, because we're all going to spend a lot of time together. I want them to be comfortable. But I actually do want to address the specific question too. The real thing about keeping relationships when you move, it's going to sound kind of simple and cliche, but it's about being intentional with your time. When I relocated to Aidenveld from the Outlands, my night was really only 7 hours away. So we planned events that we would spend time together. We had phone calls almost every week where we would get on and do projects, mead making, for example, or, you know, I was stepping down as the baronial reeve and handing it over to him, and we had to do all of that stuff. So but it was very intentional. We've made ourselves have the conversation. And many of the chats were just about nothing, like you do over a beer. But it's especially when you're traveling, especially when you're distant, and many of you would know this now, as you're trying to have relationships or form relationships with people that you haven't seen for a while, even over this medium, you have to be intentional with it. You have to invest in the time. This is when you put down the chat and pick up the phone. This is when you get on Zoom and hang out with each other and put in a little more effort into it, and don't just assume it's going to be there. Duncan's point was great, that once you have a great deep friendship, time doesn't matter. But it's getting to that deep friendship, you have to make it work.
That's fair. That's fair. No, it's a very good point. That did remind me though, Duncan, you said that you were kind of worried about some questions coming through tonight. They haven't obviously been asked in the chat, so now I'm kind of curious. I mean, do we need to find a person? Do we need to, or do you have them somewhere? Because you piqued my fucking interest when you said that, and especially even more now with the reaction.
Let me give me a second here. All
right. There is a question Effin asked, and I'm not sure. I think I might have seen it in the questions that were going by. Do you feeling like all of your moving has affected when you were knighted? And I think it kind of got touched on a little bit, I want to say.
Well,
no, Effin, it is not the nickname.
While he's looking it up, I can actually speak to that. Believe it or not, I actually think my constant moving and constant travel helped me get knighted. And though that may sound a little bit bizarre, time in kingdom wasn't a real concern. Once I got rooted in any kingdom, I was extremely active, and I knew I would be seen because it was my hobby, it was my life. But by traveling as a fighter, by fighting people in different kingdoms, different baronies, I got much better. My fighting game became far superior and grew much, much faster than fighting the same 10 guys week in and week out.
That makes sense.
In a way, yeah, I used to travel to my advantage, and it was, I found that aspect of it to be good.
Okay. That's actually really good to know. Duncan,
Well,
what
I mean,
about you? Do you want to go ahead? Go ahead, Cosmo.
Just closing thought on that. If you think about it, if you're always winning tournaments, you make the argument about whether or not you pass the fighting bar real easy to have.
Well, not to mention, I mean, are you a better fighter now that you're able to fight all of these different people, or are you remembering the person that you fight all the time and their little quirks? So what could one of those make you a better fighter over the other one? Okay, so you really know your friend and you know their body movement and that they're going to throw their key shots, or fighting a brand new person and being able to read their body movements, being able to read something of that nature. What makes you the better fighter? That is a totally different conversation. Not going to get into that. I do not have the belt to show that I know this kind of knowledge. What about you, Duncan?
Yeah, give me the question again. I'm sorry.
No, you were looking. It was do you feel like moving affected you being knighted? Like, did it lengthen your time, or do you feel like it hindered or hurt?
I would say that it was both, really. You know, because I don't sing and brew and, you know, do the arts, and I'm much better at being voluntold to do something than volunteering to do something. You know, the only way that I could make my reputation is to either, you know, get on the field and fight, or, you know, do something, you know, grandiose. So in my fighting ability, yes, it helped the traveling, because, you know, you don't get, you know, inbred with the same 2 or 3 fighters at practice. But I think I've gotten a grant of arms 3 times, because people didn't know. You know, my OP looks so impressive, with like baronial and AOA level awards, because people just didn't know. So having, you know, kind of done a lot of that moving, and being primarily just a fighter, it kind of hurt at times. But I think a lot of that was my fault.
Okay, that makes sense. Let me think here. You've had a couple other ones pop up. Are you still looking for your question, Duncan?
No, actually, the question is if I had a choice to either get stuff out of the attic or go to fighter practice, what would I do? And I would.
Okay, first of all, who asked that?
Sir Daniel out of Annora.
Okay.
And it's a joke because a lot of my time in Annora was on the recovery list. I managed to break myself. And there was a practice up in Oklahoma City. And I said, no, I need to get some Christmas decorations out of the attic. And, you know, kind of came up with an excuse not to go. Less than an hour later, before they'd even gotten up there, I had fallen out of the attic, broke my foot, and spent like 4 months. So, yeah,
That's a really good question, actually.
Well, you know, and to turn it around is, you know, if you got stuff you want to do, or go to practice, you know, I'll be honest, there's more times than not, you know, in the later years, if I can find an excuse, I will, because acting like a 20-year-old in armor, it hurts.
I can attest to this. I completely understand. Very, very much. I'm going to remember that now. I'm going to ask somebody, do you just want to go get Christmas orange? Do you want to get something out of the attic instead? And they won't understand it, but I will. Anyway, here's a really good one. And with all of the moving around that you have done, how would you define franchise in that case with all of your experience? I like Cosimo's face. This is always a really interesting question because everybody's definition of franchise seems to be just slightly different. Who wants to jump on that one? Oh, obviously Cosimo flipped it.
Yeah, totally valid. Well, for the view that I hold for franchise is, like you say, it's always slightly different, but I tend to look at it as, I'll call it embodiment of the game. It's do you own the game? Do you own your role? And that's not an ideal way of phrasing it, but when you walk in the room, it's like your own personal branding, but in a positive way for the SCA. When you walk in and people say, the Sir Cosimo brand, is that a good thing? I like to think that it is. As far as establishing franchise in multiple kingdoms, in many ways, this comes down, unfortunately, to reputation. It's what do you do and how do people speak of you as you go? Duncan was talking about how, if you leave a shit burger around for people to eat, it's going to be something they remember even as you go from kingdom to kingdom. So, leave enough of those lovely crap sandwiches around and you're going to have a wonderful opinion of franchise in whatever kingdoms you left them in. So it's just thinking through, how are you making the place better than you found it? And I know we always say that at every site, always leave the site cleaner than you found it. But what about the barony you're in? What about the practice you're in? What about the person you just interacted with? Are they better for spending time with you? And if you're focusing on making those experiences great for you and them, not just a one way, but great for you and them, I think your franchise will sort itself out. But honestly, when you're doing it from that perspective, again, it'll be better going to kingdom. You get a big wow. I sincerely want to unpack that with you, Shay, from a distance, preferably. But no, if you do things the right way, and especially for those of us who are extroverts, it gets very easy. For the introverts, it's still the same way, but you're probably not going to be in other people's faces nearly as much. But ultimately, comes down to reputation. Respectfully, of course. Right.
Okay. What about you, Duncan?
Very, very similar. If you walk into a room and you're welcomed by the people around you, if you have memories, that you and the people around you can draw on, and bring a smile to your face, then I think you're on that right, kind of understanding for franchise. If you walk into a room and, people are scurrying away or they're, turning their back and ignoring you, then, that says like Cos said, you've left a shit sandwich somewhere. And, the only person that's got to eat it is you. I think franchise can be very dynamic based on who you are, where you are. Take that brand new unbelted fighter walks into a room, they have nothing in common with the people around them. So building upon and getting more, memories out of it would be more difficult than if the king walks in the room. Kings and queens walk in the room, people stand up, ooh and ah. You got some good franchise going on.
That's true. Do you think reputation ever has a part of that too? If you're new to a kingdom and your reputation got there before you did?
It hurt. If you're famous versus infamous, you're famous to a point. But I think, that reputation and franchise can go hand in hand, and they can work against each other.
That's fair. That's totally fair. You guys are clearly very well loved.
I paid them.
Interesting. Equating franchise with personal brand. I've heard worse analogies. I mean,
Thank you.
Jesus Christ, Shay's not going to ever get over this one. Jesus Christ. Well, you guys have been really, really awesome. We're going to start wrapping it up here. I'm sorry. I'm watching a conversation on the right with Effin where we keep quietly teasing about cupcakes, and I'm so sorry, Duncan. I had to, because that's still my favorite memory of that West End here. I'm going to wrap it up with my favorite question, and I think you guys are going to be very easy with this question. How has the SCA helped you towards the zombie apocalypse? Okay. Duncan, you don't really get to count because you're military. I mean, that's a power in and of itself, I think, is you have the military prowess behind that. How has it helped you? Has it taught you anything outside of your, has the SCA taught you anything that you think you could use very well and to survive a zombie apocalypse?
Working with young soldiers who are very good at video games. Being able to take, blacksmithing or, love of history and actually apply it in teaching some of these soldiers. I without a doubt could say that, 30 years ago, I would not have survived the zombie apocalypse. And with or without the Army, the SCA has made it so that when I run out of bullets, I'm still good to go.
Exactly. Totally agree.
Even the bows behind me, because I wanted to shoot archery, the rapier, the being able to fabricate and do something with my hands. It's a long lost art. As technology got there, we stopped working with our hands. The SCA makes it so that we're constantly working with our hands, be it woodworking or brewing or playing an instrument. Our hands become very important to us, and being able to use your hands makes it so that you can survive an apocalypse.
And we do a sport where our hands are constantly. COVID was an apocalypse nobody was prepared for, but I swear it's funny that we do a sport where our hands are constantly in danger at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Cosimo? Obviously, you would be our bard.
Well, yeah, tongue-in-cheek wise, obviously the fighting aspect of it, sure, I'm going to be able to knock out a couple of zombies. But what has the SCA really taught me about it? Yes, music can soothe any beast, including a zombie. Although music can also make zombies on the battlefield. True story, started singing with the group, and I never heard a quieter battlefield. People weren't even shouting good, they were just saluting. Apparently, we sounded okay. But the SCA has also taught me how to deal with the amazing smell of what a zombie might smell like. I think I can handle that now after riding in 4 hours post-a-war practice. 6 hours post-a-war practice in 105-degree weather. Pretty good with that. And of course, combat cooking. Pretty good to handle any type of combat cooking situation now.
Sorry, my empathy is completely off the charts right now. And I never had a problem with smells until like 6 months ago, and totally different story. But oh my God, I'm having a couple of moments. Oh no, that's the worst part. I can handle human anything, but a hoarder's house was what did it for me, and now I'm so bad. Whew. Although, right before we leave, another question came in, and I think this is a really good one because this could go in two ways, and it took me like 5 seconds of reading it several times to understand it. Have you ever stealthed into a new area just to get a read on how new people are treated? Oh my God, Michael, where have you been this entire time? That is such a good question, and it could go two ways I can see. You're either looked down upon because you pulled this, or you were really smart. And I have to know. I want to do this.
Duncan, have you done it?
Violet made sure that everybody knew I was coming.
That's
so
valid.
I have not been able to stealth my way into an area. I fortunately, I mean, I've got a reputation that definitely precedes me. People pretty much know who I am. I pretty much expect cupcakes at all of my first fighter practices from here on.
I am so
Awesome.
pleased with
You're
this,
welcome.
and I now think that I think I need to make you a banner to put up right as you walk into your camp, because I think, and then just it'll be sparkly.
You really should have your device altered to at least include a
Your
cupcake somewhere on the
badge.
charge. Yeah.
Sheva, if you are still in there, have Cullen make him some like a buckler or something with a cupcake on it. Jesus Christ, because
Yes.
you have enough of them. Seriously,
it.
this man cannot put his hand into a shield basket without there being a cupcake already in there.
On
Not
my
kidding.
pillow, in my car, in the trunk.
It
in
is a
the
fun game. So
basket.
much fun.
I've
could be
had
worse.
them in my helmet, smashed them on my head when I put my helmet on.
Mhm.
All
What's been the
because-
weirdest place so far? Since you're no longer here, we can't do it to you anymore.
You gave me cupcakes a couple of months ago.
Valid.
I mean, you know, Patrick had them sent to Alaska. Like, I received
Yes.
a box in Korea. You know,
This is
I'm
true.
all excited. I'm like, ooh, I don't know who sent it, but yeah, I got a box out in Korea.
Hostess cupcakes it's the black ones with the white squiggle, right?
Oh my God, they're like.
You
Now,
got so sick of
I
them
will
during
say,
the
I
race.
have had some fantastic cupcakes, but the Hostess ones, they're not the best ones, especially when they've traveled around the world.
The nice thing is they are in packaging, though, so they're at least a little bit more contained when they explode on you.
Yep.
This begs the
Oh my
question:
God.
Hostess or Little Debbie?
It's always been Hostess.
Yep. I don't know why either, and I think it was because those were the easiest ones to get, and somebody might have had them at the event. I don't even remember how this got started, but I know it has to continue. It sucks to be you. Yes. Until you tell us, no, I'm seriously done, it's going to continue because it cracks. It's fucking hysterical. I think I saw you at Gulf Wars. Literally, I happened to see you walking by and I screamed into the car, oh my God, it's Cupcake. So
And I probably immediately responded.
you turned and you had the dirtiest look on your face too of who the fuck is saying that? It was great. Oh my God. Okay. Thank you guys. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I can actually answer the question because I have done it. I have actually stealthed into areas to watch and see how.
I
things are done.
apologize.
No, it's okay. I've done it from two perspectives though. One of them was to get a lay of the land to see where I could fit in. You know, there is uncertainty traveling around where you are. It doesn't matter who you are. It's always a little uncomfortable going to a new area. So I have sat back and sometimes if I was going to be in a place an extended time, I would go to a practice and maybe observe street clothes, never having met anybody before, and just watched how the practice went for an hour or so. Just to get a lay to figure out what do I need to do? Where do I need to go? Okay, I'm going to go to bed now because I've been working all day. And then next week we'll have it back into normal.
Mhm.
That did work out okay. And I can also say that even as like an existing peer now, I will still attempt to do much the same. But for any of you who are watching who know me and ever came to Estrella, I was the Earl Marshal for Adenville for a very long time. And I tend to be a little picky about how our fighting gets done. So I used to sneak into events to observe that from the rank and file execution perspective. I'm a very picky marshal.
When you went in like undercover in mundane clothes, did anybody approach you and try and like shadow lane you at all?
It depended on the area. There was one place in particular that did not, and that shall remain nameless. They were not interested in new people at all. And I came to find out later there's a lot of inter-area politics at the time. They were trying to go through a change of leadership. Baron and Baroness are stepping down in a very ugly way. And they were trying to figure out who the new ones were going to be. So I can't really blame them because when your house is on fire, do you want to invite somebody in? I'm cool with that. But pretty much every other area, yes, I was always had somebody come and shadow lane. And I was never smart enough or sneaky enough to say, no, please tell me I've never heard of this game before. I was never that guy. I always said, no, I'm familiar. I'm from out of kingdom. I'm just coming to see what practice is like. And they always offer to show me around. So it worked out very well. And it was, now that I say that, of all the practices that I visited and all of the events that I visited, the only time I was not welcomed in was the exploding barony.
That's fair. I mean, we were king and queen, of course, drink, but we went to their baronial meeting that night, and it was at a public pizza place. Walked in, we're kind of trying to figure out where they go, and one of them happened to walk up and went, "Hey, you guys interested in the SCA?" And we just kind of smiled and went, "No, tell us about it." And this whole group, they were a very quiet group. They don't get out to a lot of things. Came up, we're chatting about it, and then a person who actually didn't know who we were walked in and went, "Hi, Your Majesties, we didn't realize you were coming." And the whole group froze. And I was like, I am so proud of you guys. Well done. I would join if I hadn't joined this place. So it was great. I think that's a great way to, I mean, they'll never do that again. But
But it's still, but your point is, it was intention. Your intention was a positive one. You weren't going to hold this over them, and you gave them the right compliment. Thank you so much for trying to build our game. That's wonderful. And I've always been very careful about that. I don't want to sneak in and be looked at as that guy who's trying to get something over on someone. That's not what I'm about, and I don't think that's what our game should be about.
And honestly, we did not go in there going, "Hey, we're the king and queen. You're supposed to respect us." It was no, we're just coming in for a moment.
Yeah, that's
and I don't
kind
think
of a
that should
no-win
ever
situation.
be something. Yeah, exactly. So, no, thank you guys so much. It was awesome being able. Cosimo, I imagine we have met before, thanks to my husband, but it was great getting to know you in this capacity, and we look very forward to the War of the Phoenix to get to actually sit and listen to music. Very excited for that. Cupcake, I miss you dearly, and did not get enough time with you at Gulf Wars. That's my boy. What is that?
It is literally a crystal cupcake.
Oh my God. I love whoever.
They're all over the house.
I fucking love it. I'm serious. This is Sir Cupcake. We're going to find out. Like, I don't know, the Norse way of saying it. We're going to find out how to make this period. Fucking do it. And hopefully we don't have to wait until Gulf Wars to see you next time, Cupcake. But if be the way shit goes, the way shit goes. So again, and thank everybody in the comments, everybody, you guys as always, fucking amazing. Absolutely make it worth it every single night. Again, thank you guys so much. Let's see, in 2 weeks, I apologize. I don't have, wait, I do. No, I don't. Wait, somebody moved it on me. We do have one in, of course, 2 weeks. It is, let's see, that is the 25th. That will be, Sir Casimir and Sir Connell. And then following after that on the 8th of, or around the 8th of August, we're going to have Cyrus and Soren, Duncan. So, oh my God. Effin, did you really have to change his fucking name to Sir Cupcake? You could have at least capitalized it, bro.
I was gonna say it's proper noun.
Ay, caramba. Okay. Jesus Christ. Again, thank you guys so much. I'm very distracted by that now. Have a great night, everybody, and we will see you in 2 weeks for our next show. Again.